Hi guys, thogreyttv here with a new video. In this video, we're going to talk about retail, which is season 3 of the War Within. We're going to talk about Mistweaver Classic, and we're going to talk about anniversary service, which is now at phase 5 of AQ. And this is like a comparison video. I wanted to make this video because I feel like those are the 3 versions that people are playing right now. You have obviously hardcore, but I'm not gonna discuss hardcore thing. Like, again, it's not really about hardcore, this channel, but overall you have those 3 versions. I'm gonna talk about first the War Within. So the War Within will have season 3 coming out, I think sometime next week or this week, I don't remember. I think it's next week. And season 3 of the War Within comes with a new raid, with a new zone, a new FFA PVP zone, which is actually like any other zone or any other map. You have one FFA zone where Horde and Alliance can fight their own faction, and it's like group related. And you have obviously your season 3 PvP and season 3 Mythic Plus. All of these things. You have again a gear treadmill going on. A lot of people are going to come back for the new raid. A lot of people are going to come back for the Mythic Plus keystones, the Mythic Plus rotation, and the Mythic Plus mount. There are also a lot of people coming back for season 3 PvP. But overall, what does change for PvP? Because this is a PvP channel. Well, for PvP, nothing really changes. You have still solo shuffle, solo queue RBGs, still have 2v2 and 3v3, and you have also RBGs. Now, what does like anything change towards the rewards? Not really. Right now, you still have 2v2 and 3v3 paying their brackets. 2v2 has no glad mount and also no glad title, no rank 1 title, and for 3v3 you have all of these. So if you want to have the rewards, you want to do 3v3. But as many people already know, people are flocking around the solo queue versions because it's easier to go in and queue up. Now, solo shuffle and solo queue RPGs still have pretty long queues. That is just bound to happen because they didn't address the healer problems. Already made multiple videos about that. It doesn't really matter how fun you can make the season at the end if the rewards are not there for the healers, and if it's really that hard to climb as a healer compared to a DPS, it's not going to be something that is going to get better in long term. As a scientist already said, you cannot expect different results if you're doing the same thing. So it's bound to happen that it's going to have long queues again. I think at the start of the season, since MMR gets a soft reset, your CR gets a soft, like a hard reset, people are queuing up to get back to where they were. So the queue times are going to be quite faster than previous season, but it's still long in comparison to, let's say, Mistweaver, if you're doing PvP, or if you're like looking for people in LFG. For Mythic Plus, no, my guess is nothing really changes except the rotation, and the gearing process is the same. I do believe, like, right now, season 3 for me is not as hyped as what it was season 1, obviously. Will it have success? I think it will have a few success because, again, it stays a retail expansion, which are like ever changing, so people do appreciate that. If Mistweaver Classic had like an ever changing thing where people would like expect balancing changes or changes every 2 weeks, I think people would flock about those servers way faster. But since they know like Mistweaver is its own thing until it's gone, and then you progress towards Warlock of Draenor, which is not like a fan favorite expansion, people are going to have a harder time to go in instead of like going to the War Within, biting the bullet and hoping for midnight to be better. That's something that can happen. And of course, achievements, amounts, it's like ever staying, and it's ever like progressing towards like the new expansions and whatnot. I'm sorry for my WhatsApp. So yeah, we are going to talk about Mistweaver Classic right now. What is the plus about Mistweaver Classic? Well, right now there's like plenty of people. You have queue times at the evening, something in retail haven't had like since ever again, but it's because of the like abundance of servers. So I'm not expecting for queues in retail like at all. Even when it's super hyped, it will never have a queue because you have that many servers and you have cross-server technology, so you don't really care about the server, which is like super important still for Miss Pandaria, for example. But the hype is still there. You still have plenty of people at Stormwind while there is nothing to do at Stormwind. Most people are like waiting in like at the world bosses because world bosses are out, where you can get sometimes a PvP item. You have now people like queuing up for PvP because the PvP season has started. You have people also doing raids because raids are also started. Yeah, I mean in the evening today, so it is currently live, and people are also doing the challenge dungeons, which is challenging to a certain extent. At one point, it doesn't really like become that challenging. But now it's season 1, so it is the hypest moment to play Miss Pandaria. As you may know, the longer the season goes, the longer or the faster the interest kind of like goes away. It is just like basically for every expansion, every version of the game, the start is always going to be the most hypest, and then it fades away, unfortunately. But that's like something that is like not a version related. It is like literally every single version of the game has that. The War Within had that. Miss Pandaria will have that, and anniversary servers as well. How does PvP work? Well, it's the same as in retail, except that the conquest like points are doubled because the pieces cost also double. So basically, it doesn't really change too much. You gain 250 for a win in arenas, and a piece could cost between 1,250 and 3,500 depending on the piece. Like 3,500 is, for example, for a two-hander, while a main piece, like for example head, chest, and legs, would be 2,250. So it would require you around 10 wins to get like that piece. The conquest cap is every week getting augmented 4,000, so you do get like around 2 pieces per week. And if you're going for the weapon, you would get like 1 piece that week, and you could then get also the PvP pieces through world bosses, which have like respawn times and tags. So you just need to tag. That doesn't matter if you're in a raid or not. For example, Shout of Anger is between 10 and 20 minutes and all over Kunlun Summit, but you cannot really miss it because it's big and it shouts in the chat. And you have also Galleon, which is also a world boss, but in the Valley of Four Winds, and that's a specific spot, so it doesn't spawn elsewhere, and that gives you PvE gear. I don't think there's PvP gear there, at least I didn't see it drop. So those are the ways to get like conquest pieces. You could also farm honor to get the pieces from honor pieces, which is still upgrade compared to PvE. PvP power is very strong. That is like the same as versatility, but you only have the power portion and not the defense portion of it. And then you have resilience, which is baseline in 2v2 63%, in 3v3 it is baseline 64%, and in 5v5 it is 65%. So obviously there is like a lot of importance around resilience, so you want to have the double trinket from PvP, and basically PvE is like excluded, the same as retail. You don't want to have PvE pieces in PvP because you're going to get obliterated pretty much. Is it hard to grind on Miss Pandaria? It is hard. It is not, but it is quite long. Is it an investment? Personally, I just bought the contender gear pretty much on my characters. On my druid I did that, on my warlock I did that, and I do a bit of PvP in BGs to get like the off pieces, for example the rings, the neck, the cloak, the trinkets, but past the point I just do conquest grinds for arenas and RBGs or whatnot to get like the bigger pieces, because I know eventually it will get replaced anyways. You could go for like a rank push, but personally I just like want to get the gear and obviously then do the rank push once I am getting the gear and having the gear. The full honor gear is not really a requirement, because it's only an 8 level difference between the contender gear, which is on the auction house, and the honor gear, which is which you can buy with honor. The important gap is the conquest gear with the honor and the contender one. That's 30 eye level, which is big amount. In Mistweaver Classic, 30 eye level is just not 5% stronger, it is clearly just stronger. So prioritize Conquest gear, then Honor gear, Contender gear at the same level pretty much. PvE wise, Celestial Dungeons are going to come out in 2 weeks, and that is like for LFR gear, which is still good. It's fine, it's interesting, and you can do your Legendary Cloak quest through that. And Celestial Dungeons are actually fun. You can compare it with Mythic Plus, but like with extra powers. I don't mind it for the least. And I will do that on one character. I will do some PvE on one character, just to have tested everything from Mr. Pandaria Classic. Now, that's for Mr. Pandaria Classic, but what about Anniversary? Well, Anniversary is right now on phase 5, which is AQ. AQ is notoriously known for like making people leave the game pretty much, because it's really long. It's a really long raid. It doesn't matter if you have a lot of gear in your raid or not. It just has a lot of trash, and you cannot really avoid everything. And people tend to like wipe easily in AQ. If you don't like mind too much, you can like wipe the whole raid. So you have to be careful. And it has like a bit of a consume gap between AQ and PWL. For example, the frost oils are like literally a need. If you have like a melee group and you don't have too many mages, you will need the frost damage to be able to deal damage with Insidious, for example. And yeah, that's like the biggest thing. Obviously, about the PvP, it's still the same thing, rank 14 grind. It's a lot easier to do so, but it's still very brain dead. You can AFK your way to victory there. The PvP is still active, but it's like, is it really PvP, or is it like PvEers wanting to PvP to get the gear for PvE? That's the question. You have obviously Warsong Gulch and AB, which are like populated in the evening, and there the competition is a bit more fierce because people are like queuing up for Warsong Gulch and AB to actually PvP and not to PvE. So that's a great thing if you look forward to Anniversary. Obviously, the biggest thing about Anniversary servers is that you are going to progress to TBC for sure at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year from 2026, which is super important to know, because a lot of the people are like preparing for TBC. So do you want to play TBC? That's the question, really. If you want to play TBC, you surely are going to have to prep a bit on Anniversary for like leveling, for example, getting a bit of a gear, for example. But at the end, like, you just need to get level 60 and wait for TBC. That's the important stuff when we talk about TBC. Now, TBC, I'm going to talk about it as well. The PvP system is around arena points. Now, it could change towards Conquest, how we have in Cataclysm. I want it to be like Cataclysm, where they may change the whole gearing process towards Conquest, which helps tremendously in the alt department. Like, it becomes way more alt friendly. The replayability is way easier as well. If you go into vacation for 3 weeks, you are not like losing any gear progress, because you can catch up when you're coming back. But in arena points, you get points every week. So every Wednesday you get the points based on the week you have done before. It's based on 10 games and based on rating. The higher your rating is, the more points you will get. And with those points, you can then buy gear. So it's a get richer scheme. So basically, if you have like 2k MMR or 2k CR, excuse me, and you're getting your points, you will get infinitely more points than someone that is like at 0 CR and losing those 10 games. So the gap between the best and the noobs, can I say, is even bigger, because even if they see each other in arenas, and the gap is already very, very big for skill, it gets even more big when we're talking about gear, because the gear will be very much different between someone that is like at 1k CR and someone that is at 2k CR, which is the rating. So I don't like that. Personally, if they come back with arena points and teams, I don't know how serious I'll have with TBC. It's a really big thing for me. Like, if they come back with that, it's pretty much like dead in stone, where I'm not going to spend that much time in TBC. I will be spending a bit of time for raids, maybe a bit of PvP here and there, maybe on just one character. But I know that I'm going to be very frustrated if I like lose 1 or 2 weeks of progress because I have to do something, for example, real life goes through, and I come back and obviously those arena points are not able to be caught up. So either they're changing it to arena points you get for every win, so basically conquest, or they change it back to conquest like they did with with Cataclysm, and you will have a way easier progress towards your gear. So I need that if you want me to actually focus on TBC Anniversary. But TBC is one of my favorite expansions, so again, it's a bit of a disheartened fact that if they change nothing about TBC, it will be really sucky. Because once you have done a lot of the conquest things, it's very hard to come back to the arena point style of gearing, because it's really unjustified to do so. I think like gear should not be that big of a gap, especially since gear is very important. Gear should be able to be gained by everyone and anyone if they're just doing PvP, and the rating should decide if you're like better or not. So that's the idea. So I discussed the 3 versions. Now I'm going to give you my opinion on those 3 versions. Right now, my mind says to like main the War Within Season 3 because it is way easier to make videos, way easier to make views. My best videos were always retail videos because obviously it's ever changing. People are like looking actively for stuff and to learn stuff to get better in game. So automatically it's a better thing for me to be on retail. But my heart and my desire for the game is close to a 0. I just do not want to touch retail. It's really annoying, and I have a few things why I don't want to touch it. First and foremost, the devs are completely ignoring PvP problems. If you are like seeing the PvP dev blogs or blue posts from like Miss Pandaria Classic or even Classic, they're night and day from the communication from retail. I feel like the retail ones are like written by ChatGPT first and foremost, but also they're like so sporadic that I don't remember the last time we've seen a PvP blue post. And it might be Season 1, The War Within, just to change about the solo queue RPGs thing. That's it. For Solo Shuffle, I can go back to Dragonflight pretty much to know any communication towards Solo Shuffle, which is dreadful, guys. Like, it's a retail, so it's an expansion, a proper ever-changing version. Basically, their version, the headline version, the flagship version of World of Warcraft. And they are just not communicating for PvP. I would also say for PvE as well. For Mythic Plus, there's also no communication towards that. The reward system is still not good. They haven't done any changes to make the queue times less aggressive like how we know right now. And I'm not okay to keep it like that. So that's point number 1. The queue times, the communication is point number 2. And I would say point number 3 is that there is too much of a power creep. What do I mean with power creep? Something that I really despise is saying 10 million execute, 10 million chaos bot. Like, at what point is like our numbers meaningless? If you can do a 10 million chaos bot on a player, it means that the player has minimum 20 million health. So it's a 50% chaos ball, which is not that, like, it doesn't happen that often, but it can happen. It's still like ridiculous. And some people are going to say, but you're not going to hit 10 million in chaos balls, you might hit like a 7 million or a 5 million. That's not a problem. The problem is like the number of zeros that are after the 10 or the 9 or the 5. It's way too big for me to appreciate it. It feels like I'm playing Diablo. It feels like I'm playing a hack and slash where it's a number prone things pretty much, to say it to like, again, it's I don't appreciate that. I grew up, and that's a real story, and I think a lot of the things are real, to be honest, on my channel. I grew up towards like watching on my tablet, watching on my phone videos from Swifty, Verdun, Drake Dog. I could also say like the most obvious ones. We have also Benjira with Cataclysm. I liked to see the numbers concise. And Miss Pandaria kind of goes through that emotion, right? At the end of the expansion, you're going to be able to do 300k Chaos Bolt. So it's not like something that is like only for retail to be a problem. It's also a problem for modern classic. Modern classic is like Miss Pandaria classic. And once you are like Walls of Draenor, I think there's a number squish at that point. But overall, the damage is too high on retail for me to appreciate it. It's not fun at the point where people are like disabling numbers because they don't care anymore. And for me, World of Warcraft, what they do very well is showing big numbers when you're hitting, and it has like a sound effect and kind of a visual effect, which is very satisfying. A lot of the games, modern games, a lot of the MMO games really don't have what World of Warcraft has when it comes to damage numbers. And I invite you, for example, to level on retail really quickly, and then level on classic. And I would say anniversary, but also Miss Pandaria. How you deal damage as a mage? Let's say you're a mage, or let's say a warrior. Warrior is easier to notice. On retail, when you're doing damage on a mob, first of all, that mob is dying in 2 hits, but that is besides the point. You are going to see very small numbers. So the numbers are really, really small. And that's like for the retail like numbers. You can also have an add-on for that, but let's say you don't use an add-on. In classic, the numbers are like popping. Like even when you're doing 20 damage, when you're doing a 40 crit, it feels like, oh my days, this mob is dying really quickly. While in retail, everything dies really quickly, first and foremost, but also the damage numbers are like so small, like you don't really notice it too much. It's really weird. Like I want you to test it. Like just test it. And yes, the gameplay from Classic Anniversary is super slow. That's true. But remember, what versions of the game was the most popular versions of World of Warcraft combined? Like it's Vanilla, TBC, Wrath, to a certain point Cataclysm, to another point Miss Pandaria. My sense of dealing damage is vastly different than on retail. I feel like on retail it just is not great. And that's one of the problems I have. Now, if that's the only problem I had, I would still be playing retail. But it's a combination of the queue times, the developers not doing any updates, not doing any communication, doing like... in French we have mettre sa tête comme une autruche dans la terre. So basically, you are like putting your face on the underground and like telling yourself it is fine. Or like the one meme where you have the dog, I don't know how his name is, dog in a burning house and saying it is fine. That is literally the retail devs for me. There is no there is no real progression inside. There is no correction inside. There is no things I can look forward to right now. In Midnight, they only talk about housing, which is definitely nothing for me. Like, this is not important for me. Housing, I will not set a foot in that house except if it's for a quest while I'm leveling. Because I don't really care about housing. For me, housing seems like Sims, but with extra steps. And maybe some people might think it's not. But for me, it is just Sims with extra steps. I don't feel like socially it improves anything towards retail. I think if you put housing in classic, it would be 10,000 times better than retail, because it is a social game. It's a social MMORPG. It is like, and it is vastly less social than in 2019 and vastly less social than in 2005, but it is vastly more social than anything retail related. That's one of the things that I despise about retail. Because there is nothing I look forward to at all in Midnight, but also in Season 3, Season 4. Like, I think Season 4 is going to be a faded raid with Legion Plus, like Legion Remix, which is, again, nothing for me except for transmogs. What else can we discuss? Miss Pandaria Classic, let's talk about negatives, because there are some negatives. I would say that there is no solo queue, obviously. That sucks for anyone. Even though I say that it doesn't really need a solo queue to be able to enjoy the game, it is vastly easier to enjoy the game when you have solo queue, because you can then solo queue in the mornings. If you have like a morning schedule, you can be able to play in the mornings. It kind of sucks to not find like reliable partners. Yeah, obviously you can do that right now because people are playing the game. Some people are even taking like day offs for like Miss Pandaria. But once that period, that like saving period is gone, you'll be alone, not most of the time, but like often, and it's very hard to find like partners. I guess it could change, I could be wrong, but it's very hard to find partners at that point, and it will be more of an evening game, which is like, for example, retail. Like in the morning you're not going to find anyone for 3s or 2s. But solo queue kind of helps with that. Now, a solo queue in retail is filled of queue times, and if you do it a correct solo queue in Mr. Pandaria, I think it has a lot of people wanting to play with very fast queue times. But it needs to be solo queue and not solo shuffle. And MMR should be a team-based MMR and not an individual-based MMR. But that's besides the point. That's the big like question mark. Pretty much, like, how is it going to survive without a solo queue in a solo queue era gaming? Good thing is it is a social expansion. Like, I mean, the server is very social. You have people looking for anyone to do anything, so it feels like you are like always busy with things, while in retail people are like not talking really in looking for a group. It feels like a vastly different game. You have only boosters really talking, and GTKPs. But that's it. And then about anniversary servers, well, the truth is, if they don't announce conquest for me for TBC, that prep would be for nothing. Well, you could also enjoy the raids and you can enjoy the PvP for what it is. But if you're like looking for like really good PvP, you really need conquest. You really need to have no teams, which it was still not the case in TBC Classic. In TBC Classic 2019, 2021 or 2020, I don't remember. You still had teams and still had arena points, and that's like the what if for me. Also, Classic Phase 5, it's a bit dead now. Is it dead? I still think like there's plenty of people playing, but most people are like raid logging or buying boosts to level up. So it kind of sucks. Like I wish there was a fresh with all the changes that it could do towards the leveling process, towards PvP and whatnot, and would be like a very much of a success. But then we are like very, very deep into a Classic Plus environment, and I wish they did balance changes how they did for Mr. Pandaria. They did balance changes for Mr. Pandaria Classic, and we're not thinking about Mr. Pandaria Classic Plus, right? We're thinking about Mr. Pandaria Classic with some changes, and I think it would be for the better if we had a bit of balancing changes towards warriors to be like not be that like great class that is able to be stacked to 30 in one raid, to exaggerate a bit, to extrapolate a bit, but also like make changes towards like, for example, Retribution Paladins, Balance Druids, Elemental Shamans, Enhancement Shamans to be less of a dead weight at the end. Shadow Priest, for example, their mana or their ability to crit. If it could crit on dots, it would be like one of the best classes in the game, because then you can scale very well. While right now the classes that are scaling with crit. So obviously, if you cannot crit, that kind of sucks. And for bounce rate, it is clearly like cast times, no procs, no dots that are like very meaningful, and you don't really have mana to sustain the damage that you're doing. So yeah. Anyways, that's pretty much my opinion about everything. I'm playing Mr. Pandaria Classic right now. I do play anniversary servers as well to prepare for TBC. But that's pretty much it. For retail, I just will not touch it until they change anything towards it. Again, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.